all notice it in different ways, I suppose. I noticed it when it got harder and harder to reach for the cups on the top shelf in the cupboard. Of course, that is not why I spent last week in hospital. I fell in the shower. It wasn't a bad fall, but it was enough to break my wrist. They tell me this is all part of osteoporosis. And I'm not very happy about it, I can tell you. Do you know that the doctors tell me that next time it could be my hip that gets broken? I am very independent, and if this is part of getting old, I don't like it one bit.
Just part of getting older. That's where she's wrong. It doesn't have to be like that, you know. Hello, I'm Ruth Cracknell. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to talk about osteoporosis. Certainly, things do change as we get older. Osteoporosis can be one of those changes. But fortunately, as we'll find out, new ways are being found to manage it. There are tens of thousands of osteoporosis sufferers who will say much the same as the woman we saw at the start of the tape. For them, osteoporosis may mean that even a minor fracture can become a major disability. And with up to 1 in 2 women over 50 at risk of an osteoporotic fracture, it is in truth a major disease. Like a lot of major diseases, it took quite a while for it to be really recognized. Think about it for a minute. All older people who seemed confused used to be thought of as senile, but then we recognize the problem now known as Alzheimer's disease. In the same way, older women who broke bones used to be called frail. Well, thank goodness we now know that these women may actually have osteoporosis, because osteoporosis is a disease that can be controlled. But before we talk about treatment and control, let's just look at why osteoporosis happens. Now imagine your bones are like the branches of a tree. When the tree is healthy, the structure of the wood is sound. Our branches are very strong. They can take a lot of pressure. But when the tree becomes unhealthy, the internal structure of the branch changes. It may become weak and brittle. Then a small load can break it. Bone is very similar. Bone is a fantastic material. It's not solid, as you might think, but it has a structure rather like honeycomb. Light, flexible, and perhaps more extraordinary, renewable. In fact, your body turns over your entire skeleton, replaces the whole lot over a period of years, a continuous process of replacement and renewal. The process involves the breaking down of old bone by special cells which eat away the old bone tissue, forming tiny cavities. These cavities are then filled by other cells to form new, healthy bone. It's a balancing act to make sure you have new, healthy bone all the time. If these two processes aren't in balance, then more bone tissue may be broken down than can be renewed. This forms much bigger spaces within the bones, as you can see here, making them more fragile and more liable to break. When does the balance go wrong? Well, a woman's bone mass is usually at its peak in the late 20s, but from then on it very gradually declines and can become a particular problem around the time of the menopause. The trouble is that the process can get progressively worse. In the most serious cases, up to 30% of a skeleton's bone mass may be lost. Now, the worst consequence of this is bone fracture, particularly a broken hip. And fractures can also occur in the wrist, the spine, and other bones in the body. In fact, the early fractures can easily go undetected because they are often in the spine and cause a gradual loss in height before they are detected. In fact, Women can lose up to 10 centimetres or 4 inches in height as a result. When we're young, we're building bone. As the body grows, the skeleton grows too, the frame on which we build muscle and sinew. You know how parents are always going on about their children eating this and that because it's good for their teeth and bones and things. Well, that's true, of course, but it holds true in later life as well. Young bones grow rapidly. From childhood, the skeleton grows stronger and bigger, as the body does. By the time we reach our late 20s, bones are at their best, strong, healthy, and durable. But for women at menopause, things begin to change. It's a time when the balance between bone loss and renewal can become a particular problem. If this happens, the result may be osteoporosis and fracture. Just 10% loss of bone density leaves you with twice the risk of a spinal fracture, more than twice the risk of a hip fracture. Fortunately, there is something you can do to reverse this progression of bone loss. This is why you and your doctor are tackling the problem with FOSAMAX. Coupled with some sensible lifestyle habits, FOSAMAX can go a long way to ensuring that you enjoy your later years, leading an active life and maintaining your independence. So, how does it work, this FOSAMAX? Well, you'd have to be an osteoporosis specialist to answer that. You look like an osteoporosis specialist.
I am an osteoporosis specialist.
What a coincidence. Who is at risk of osteoporosis?
Well, I suppose you could say almost anyone, men or women, are at risk as they get older.
Who is at the highest risk?
Postmenopausal women, women who smoke, women who have a positive family history of osteoporosis, or women who have to take certain drugs like prednisone. They're all at the highest risk.
Tell me, how is the diagnosis of osteoporosis made?
Well, in the old days, we used to wait until someone had a fracture before we could make the diagnosis. Thankfully now, we can measure a person's bone density using a special test, and that tells us if the person has a very low bone density and therefore is at risk of going on to break a bone.
How does FOSAMAX work?
Well, there are two cells in your bones. One destroys bone and the other rebuilds it. FOSAMAX actually works on the one that destroys bone or eats it up.
How will FOSAMAX work for the patient?
Well, the end result is that we hope FOSAMAX will prevent fractures, perhaps by as much as 50%. But FOSAMAX hopefully is going to be a drug that has little in the way of side effects, so that people will be able to take it to help prevent fractures in the future.
How should the patient take FOSAMAX?
Now that's very specific. It's important that the person take FOSAMAX first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, with a full glass of plain water. They should not lie down for at least 30 minutes after they've taken the tablet, nor should they have anything else, coffee, tea, or anything else to eat for at least 30 minutes.
For how long should the patient take FOSAMAX?
Well, it's very important that it's taken on a daily basis. The drug works because it's taken on a daily basis. We really don't know whether the drug needs to be taken for the rest of your life or whether it will be a matter of 10 years or 15 years. We don't have the answer yet to that question.
What side effects should the patient be aware of?
I think the most important side effect would be the onset of any burning discomfort in the centre of the chest, indigestion-like pain, or the occurrence of any reflux of acid-like fluid up into the back of the mouth. That might indicate that the person was developing esophagitis or inflammation of the lower end of the gullet. In that case, the tablet should be stopped immediately and the person should contact their doctor.
Now, I suppose we've got to think about exercise here, but tell me, that doesn't mean we've got to go herring down to the gym, does it?
No, I doubt I'd get many of my patients to do that anyway. I think sensible forms of exercise, we talk about weight-bearing exercise. By that we mean walking. 30 minutes of walking 3 to 5 times a week, and that can be any form of walking. It could include golf or tennis or anything.
So, golf and tennis are fine?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, is there anything else you'd like to say to women taking or thinking of taking FOSAMAX?
Yes, it's never too late to consider taking something for your osteoporosis. You're never too old.
Thank you. Well, you can run into all sorts of people in the park these days. That was quite interesting, wasn't it? Anyway, back to the main point. This is a femur, a leg bone. I borrowed it. Not much use to its owner now anyway. Brittle, like the unhealthy branches of a tree. But if we could help make it stronger again, what a difference that would make. What a difference. And that's what FOSAMAX can help do for your bones. So if you do have a minor accident, you'll be less likely to suffer a fracture. And a fracture can be a real problem. I don't want to frighten you, but let me just give you some figures. In the case of broken hips, which are the most serious of the common osteoporosis breaks, 1 out of 5 women may die because of complications. 1 out of 4 may need long-term care. And 1 out of 3 may never be as independent as she was before the fracture. That's what it's all about, really. Independence. Nobody wants to have to rely on others all the time because you can't get dressed without help, or go shopping, things like that. If we can keep our poor old bones healthy, we have much less chance of being laid up in hospital with a broken hip or back or wrist, and we have more chance of being able to live the sort of life we want to. I must say, in my case, that means being able to enjoy a good long walk. I'm lucky I don't have osteoporosis, but let me introduce you to someone who has, and who has managed it successfully through good care.
I went to the doctor just for a routine physical examination, and they diagnosed osteoporosis. Well, I must have been, 57 at the time, and I'm a dancer, and I thought I might have to give up dancing. Well, dancing's my life, and I just don't know where I'd be without it. I was very fortunate that my doctor sent me for a bone scan when he did, because they discovered I was at risk of fractures. So they were able to start treatment immediately to stop it going any further. But really, I think I was one of the lucky ones.
Imagine still being fit enough to teach dance when you're on the way to 70. But you know, there's a lot we can do to be more like her, and not just by taking FOSAMAX. There are a few other things you can do to help. Something smells good, which reminds me, diet. Now what we need is someone who knows about food. Seek and ye shall find. Isn't life marvellous? Imagine being able to summon up a cook like Ian Parmenter, just like that. Ian, you look marvellously healthy.
Oh, thanks very much, Ruth. I'm feeling amazingly healthy, I have to say.
What's the secret?
Well, it's very simple. It's basically common sense. I look for a balanced diet, and I think we all need to, especially as we get a bit older. What that means is looking at our food groups, carbohydrates, pasta, such as I have here today, rice and bread. We should all eat more of that because it's really good food and it's not fattening. People thought, oh yes, all these things are fattening. They're not. It's when you add things to them that they become fattening. Lean meat, chicken with the skin taken off, eggs and nuts should be eaten in moderation. The nuts you should get without salt. Dairy products. We should be looking for low-fat dairy products, so we reduce the overall fat intake while keeping the calcium there that our bones need. Pulses are very good, lentils and dried beans, terrific food. Vegetables, of course, we can't eat too many vegetables, and it's nice to barbecue them like this or to steam them to keep in a lot of the goodness. Fruit, of course, ideally fresh fruit, cut fruit, or even canned fruit, but it's best to get canned fruit that's in natural juices and not in thick sugar syrup. Or dried fruit. Dried fruit is terrific, but remembering that the drying process does concentrate the sugar, and whereas you might eat 2 plums, you'll probably eat half a dozen prunes. Now, there are special considerations for people either with osteoporosis: protein and caffeine. Now, with the protein, the chicken, the meat, the eggs, we should really serve no more than 2 helpings a day. With caffeine, here we're looking at beverages. It's not just coffee, tea as well, and cola drinks, maybe 4 servings a day, and that's about as much as we should really have. Now, drinking. We have now found out that the occasional glass of wine with a meal is actually beneficial to our health. 6 to 8 glasses a day of water we should be drinking. I know that sounds like a lot, but that really is something that we should think about doing more of, and I'm as guilty as the next person not drinking that water, but I should be doing so. Now, I'll just serve you a little of this wonderful pasta, good carbohydrate.
Oh, yummy.
And possibly, while you have that, I might toast you. Ruth, bon appetit.
Ah, I enjoyed that. Nothing like a lovely walk in the bush. Now, I suspect you're going to say that this next bit is just common sense, safety at home, but really, being conscious of it is not such a bad idea. Do you know that many slips, trips and falls actually occur in the home? So checking for risks is a good idea. Let me give you a few examples. Put non-slip mats on slippery floors, a rubber mat in the shower or bath, and a handrail. Under no circumstances should you lift heavy weights. Don't stand on chairs to reach high places. Get someone else to help you change light bulbs, for example. And keep an eye out for cords from appliances like vacuum cleaners. Oh, one more thing. If you get up during the night, make sure to turn on a light so you don't trip over. You know as well as I do what can trip you up, but I wonder if you stop to think about it. Well, you should, you know. There's no point in having strong hips and then falling over and breaking your neck. And if you've had children around, be especially careful. They never tidy up properly, even if they say they have. You don't want them being responsible for putting you in hospital. So, you see what I mean about osteoporosis? It isn't something to be scared of. It isn't something that's an inevitable part of getting older. FOSAMAX and a few lifestyle tips can help manage or avoid it. Of course, FOSAMAX, like any other medicine, has to be taken in the proper way if it's to do its job properly for you. Fortunately, that's pretty simple. 1 tablet a day, first thing every morning, taken with a full glass of plain water at least half an hour before your first food, beverage or other medicine of the day. Timing is important because food or drink lessens the effect of FOSAMAX and of course reduces the benefit. It really must be taken on an empty stomach. And make sure you don't lie down for at least half an hour after you take the tablet. This will make sure that the tablet reaches your stomach quickly and help avoid any irritation to your esophagus. That's the tube that takes the food from your mouth to your stomach. And please, make sure you follow your doctor's instructions and talk to him or her if you have any questions. Merck Sharp Dohme, the makers of FOSAMAX, hope you've enjoyed and learnt something important from this video. I know I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please remember that with the efforts of your doctor, FOSAMAX, and you've got a partnership which can really do something about osteoporosis. Talk to your doctor, follow his or her directions, make a few sensible changes to your lifestyle, and you'll be on your way to building yourself a healthier, more independent future.